Wednesday, September 26th. It looks like we have a full agenda, but it might be able to, we might be able to move through it rather swiftly. But so tonight we have two guests, Selectman Tom Dion. Tom, hi.
Hi, folks.
Hi. Tom asked to speak with us. And do you know everybody here? Because we do have some new people. Do you?
Just met Mr. Cook here, and I think I know everybody else.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So, Tom, why don't we open it up with you?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I wanted to just spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes
Make sure that's close to you, by the way.
talking about what I think we all know is our assessment for regional schools. Has been, I guess, some point of contention at town meeting. And I just want to go through some of the information that I found and basically talk about potentially some solutions to try to see a fair and equitable formula for Abington, moving forward in the future. So I just want to pass out, I put together a little presentation here that I just want to run you through. It's 10 slides in the deck. I'm not sure, John, I presented this the other night. I think you might not have been there that night, but you'll, right.
Well, at least you get to see it tonight.
I think it's heading in the right direction.
So I want to open up tonight. If you just go to slide 2, you're probably going to say, what the heck are you doing here? But the quiz is, who is this person?
The guy from Dirty Jobs. And the
Mike Rowe, anybody for Ben Affleck?
Kevin Dunn, he graduated from South Shore Tech.
Yay.
It's the guy from the Bounty commercials.
Absolutely right. It's Mike Rowe, and you're going to
That's
say,
right.
why is he in there? I want to start off this discussion that some people in the audience or in this committee might think that what I'm going to say is against South Shore Voc, and clearly it's not. Mike Rowe is probably the premier pitchman for vocational education in this country. He's appeared before committees in Congress, and like Mike, and I think most people, I would say in this room, see a balanced education, of which vocational education is a big piece. And John stole my thunder a little bit. If you play your cards right, you might get appointed, go to South Shore Voc and get appointed as a member of the Finance Committee, or if you really play your cards right, you might get elected to the Board of Selectmen. But I want to just start off with that in going to slide 3. 3 points. The first is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in my opinion, regional school assessment formula imposed by the Department of Education should be changed, since it's used unfairly to assess Abington taxpayers for the cost of sending our kids to South Shore Voc. And again, to reiterate, any attempt to change the regional school assessment formula should not be construed as being critical of South Shore Voc administration, the individual that calculates the assessment, or the quality of education that the professionals at South Shore provide the students. And again, this Tuesday I had a meeting, I think he might be here tonight, is Tom Hickey, who's the superintendent, and Bob Kelly, just to go through this with them, as I am with you tonight, and I'll give you some comments on that in a minute. My opinion, hopefully more than mine, but the assessment should be simple, fair, and equitable to all 8 in-district member communities. Slide 4. If you go and you do a little research at the Department of Ed and regional school formulas, the Department of Ed proclaims that ensuring that a town's required school contributions are fairly allocated amongst the various school districts to which it may belong, this new regional allocation methodology has succeeded at its goal. And I would say for some communities it has, but for Abington it hasn't. Slide 5.
Tom, can I ask one question about that?
Oh.
What are they defining as new? When was new?
Okay, according to, I believe Bob Kelly and Tom Hicks, this came in, that the new formula that they tweaked was right around 2002, something like that. But the formula was changed when ed reform was passed in 1992, 1993. Up until that point, it was a simple formula. As simple as, what's the budget of a regional vocation school district
Divided by the number of students.
divided by the number of students, John, thank you, equals your per pupil cost. The kids you send, the member communities, you take that per pupil cost and you multiply it by the number of kids you sent. They've changed that based on two factors, and I don't have it, but I can get it for you, based on the value of property in the community and also the wealth of a community. So they take assessors data, and John, I sort of forget the EQV value of a community, which they've shared with me for the 8-member communities, and I don't know how the heck they figure out the wealth of each community. They have something that the Department of Revenue puts out, a big number that is used to value Abington versus, let's say, Hanson, or Situate, or Cohasset. And again, it comes down to, based on your ability to pay, according to this formula, you'll either pay more or less than the old formula. And to get to the guts of it, on slide 5, just take a look at the 8-member communities in Abington, and the first one, in South Shore of Oak. The first one is Abington. You can see in FY 2004, we had 92 kids going to South Shore of Oak Tech. We paid $6,102. 5 years later, in FY 2009, our enrollment went up to 118, but the per pupil cost went up under this formula to $8,575, an increase of almost $2,500, up 41% from where it was in '04. Okay, and then let's take a look at some of the other communities. Cohasset, again, somewhat of an outlier in my opinion, in the sense they only send in '04 7 kids, 9 kids, but they're paying $12,000. Hanover is up 22%. They went from $8,100 to almost $10,000. But here's where it sort of works against us. Hanson, in 2004, they paid $5,484 for 52 kids. In FY 2009, the enrollment went up to 79 from Hanson, yet their per pupil costs went down to $3,978 based on this formula. Norwell had a decrease in enrollment, but their per pupil cost went from $4,800 to $11,006. And then the other two districts that went down or were basically flat was Rockland, because Rockland and Abington have the most kids going to South Shore of Oak Tech of any of the 8 members combined. Rockland was $7,000 in FY 2004, and it went up to $7,200 in FY 2009, or 3% over that time period. In Whitman, basically flat enrollment from 107 to 112, went from $9,000 down to $4,700 in that time period. And again, it's all based on the regional formula and how they tweaked it around the, the beginning of the century. Go to page 6 if you need more evidence. And again, working from the bottom, in FY 2009, our assessment, okay, the budget in our town warrant was $1,011,878. The next year, that increased to $1,338,000, or 32% under the new formula, okay? Now, Bob Kelly will point out appropriately, we sent more kids there, okay? But look at column D and column E. The per pupil cost is what we need to focus on. It went from $8,300 to $9,400, or 14%. Between 10 and 11, it went from 94 to 10,937, 16%. Bit of a relief in 2012, it only went up 5% to 11,450. And then the last, the budget that we just approved in May, the per pupil cost went from 11,400 to about 12,400, or 9%. In that time period, the budget, what we spend, went from $1,111,000 to $1.9 million. And again, that's deceiving because we're sending more kids, in each of those years. But the point is that per pupil cost for whatever reason, Abington, the formula doesn't work for Abington. It doesn't work for Situate. It doesn't work for Cohasset. It doesn't work for Hanover. It doesn't work for Norwell. Because if this was basically based on, as John points out, the budget divided by the number of kids, the per pupil cost, we would expect South Shore VOTEC's budget has been going up about 3% a year over those 5 years. That's what I would expect, that Abington and all the member communities should pay, but it's not. Go to page 6, excuse me, page 7. Again, this just shows you the education impact between, for what we pay in Abington, between regional vocational and the Abington school budget. Over those 5 years, as I said, their budget averages, it's up 9.6%. It's about 2.5% per year. Okay, and frankly, when I look at it, this is kind of what you might expect to see in funding, you know, a budget at a school or a high school like South Shore VOTEC. Abington, on the other hand, you know, we knew we sort of took it with some of the local aid and state cutbacks in FY 2010, but our Abington school budget went down by 7%, almost $1.4 million. The next year, again, it went down 421 on top of that. We've started to come back. You know, in FY 2012, we put 4% more in the budget, and this last year, 3%. But still, over that 5-year period, Abington Public Schools are down about 3% over 5 years. Now, this isn't because of South Shore VOTEC. There's other factors here, right? And I'll describe one in a minute, that in addition to regional school assessment, you know, there's some other factors there. But my feeling is, if you go to page 8, I'd suggest that the existing formula doesn't work, or doesn't make the mark for a community like Abington. Page 9, again, to John's point, what would a simple, fair, equitable formula look like? If you go back to pre-19, I think it's actually, John, 1993 that ed reform came in. But take the budget, South Shore VOC or any regional budget, divide by their enrollment, divide the budget by the enrollment, get the per pupil cost, and that's what each member community pays. And again, go to page 10. What the benefit for Abington would be, I just calculated it for 2013, is what happened using the current, what I would say complex formula, is our assessment was $1,901,537. If it was using the simple, fair, equitable formula, in my opinion, it should have been, would have been 1.643526, so $1,643,526, for an Abington taxpayer cost savings of $258,011. But that's a little bit misleading because, you know, my opinion, probably wouldn't be a savings to the taxpayer. It may be, but as you know, to me, it may be in the education pool that you could use to fund Abington Public Schools, or it could be used for other priorities that the town sets. But over 5 years, you know, we've spent almost $900,000 more than, in my opinion, we should have using the simple formula. The other thing that Bob, and again, I can't thank Tom Hickey and Bob enough, but Bob Kelly told me, who's, for the audience, is the treasurer of South Shore VOTEC. He hasn't calculated in a few years because it used to work the other way, that 5 out of the 8 communities' assessment would go down. This year, for FY 2013, 5 out of the 8 went down. Would go down under a simple, excuse me.
Went up. You said went down.
That's what I'm saying. 5 of the 8, if we use a simple formula, would go down.
Right.
Hanson, Rockland, and Whitman would have gone up, which frankly is the crux of the problem that we have, is that the rules of engagement is that the 8 member communities could vote. It would have to be unanimous to change the formula back to the old way, the simple formula. But the political reality of it is Hanson's not going to vote for it, right? Whitman's not going to vote for it, and Rockland's probably not going to vote for it because it would move their assessment up, which is a bit of a thorny, issue for us. But go ahead, Barbara.
So in the formula, it almost seems as though we're treated like some of the wealthier communities.
Correct.
Because to me, I'm thinking, why would we want, in some ways, you would think that it would benefit us that the wealthier communities with the current formula, that the wealthier communities would pay more per pupil.
They are, but they have.
But they have less pupils, so, and in the, in a simpler formula, we, or it wouldn't, right, be a factor.
Right.
Whereas right now, it's almost like we fall, I'm trying to look for
But
that.
I think you've hit the crux of what the state is trying to do, is I think back, John, it was in 1992-ish, or 91, I think the case was McDuffie versus the Brockton School Committee, and the suit against the school committee was, you're not providing my son or daughter the same education as other towns are. So that started this movement to move money from wealthier communities, redistribute the wealth. And again, if you look at towns up in the North Shore or anywhere, southeastern, those member communities subsidize the Brockton kids that go, right? Because Brockton's, poorer community. I don't know, John, if it's somewhere up, I don't know if it's Essex County, but wherever Lawrence is, Andover pays a huge fee. They don't have that many kids, but they offset the cost of kids from Lawrence going to their regional school system. So in some cases, in my mind, it probably works. But I would just ask you, if you look at those 8 communities, this is me, okay? I see Abington, Rockland, Whitman, and Hanson very equivalent. From a property value, from a wealth viewpoint, I see Norwell, Cohasset, Hanover to some degree, and Situate is maybe a wealthier community with higher property values, okay? But in general, the way the state looked at it, it was designed for urban schools. Our setup is not urban in any manner, shape, or form. And for us, that's $900,000 that just going back over that period of time, that basically I think, our assessment causes to pay that under a different formula, wouldn't happen. And again, it's got nothing to do with VOTEC, nothing at all. It's all of them, Southeastern, Blue Hills, up and down the line.
If our numbers dropped, how would the formula, the simple formula, work for us?
My understanding that there's not a significant impact, other than the way Bob and Tom describe it is, and again, I'm a little over my head, but you've got the foundation budget, okay, which basically says Abington, all these communities have to pay so much money, okay? I think regardless of how many kids they have. Where you might get some reduction is, what Bob tells me he does is, over that foundation, they just take whatever the costs are for heating, some of the other sort of capital improvements, the debt, and they just divide it up by the number of kids in the system. So if Abington's number went from 150 to 100, we'd see some benefit, is my understanding, in the per pupil cost. But I'm not sure
The
if
current
it's,
formula or the simple formula?
that would be under the current formula.
That's what, so I'm asking, in the simple formula, if our numbers were to drop, so I'm kind of playing devil's advocate.
Go.
So, say 5 years from, say we change the formula to the simple formula, and in 5 years our numbers plummet. Will that make a difference with the simple formula?
My opinion, from an absolute viewpoint, yes, because again, even though your per pupil cost will drop, so is in your enrollment. So the absolute number that you pay South Shore VOTEC, I would assume would be less. But if it was steady state, we still had 155 years from now, you know, again, based on what happened this year, you'd see some significant savings. Is my understanding of it. Yes, Steph?
The formula in and of itself, to my understanding, is determined by the Department of Education and is statewide. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this would not be in, or would it be in the power of South Shore VOTEC to change that formula?
Okay.
If every member community voted to change the formula, it's almost like the education, me having to go back to every union and get them to agree on a change in healthcare. Now
Okay,
that
would that
law
be
was changed.
statewide, or would that be the 8 cities and
That would be the
towns?
8 cities and towns here that we could, but it would have to be every single community, and I think as Selectman Dion has pointed out, we're pitted against other communities in the sense that some of those communities see it to their advantage not to go to that formula. Is
Okay.
that correct?
That's correct, and again, maybe put it in, maybe terms of our town meeting. You know, to pass an article on the warrant, it's a simple majority. Okay, I think the stabilization is you need 75%, two-thirds. Okay, to either vote up or vote down the South Shore school budget, you need two-thirds of the communities supporting it, which I think is 5. If 3 reject it, I hope my math is right, then it still passes. For the stabilization fund that take money out, I think it's 80 or 90%.
No, it's a two-thirds vote.
For
Yeah.
stabilization, there was one that was 90. But in this case,
9/10 are prior year bills.
okay, in this case, it's unanimous. So my understanding is whether it's South Shore VOC or any of the regional schools, whatever member communities, it's got to unanimously, each of the members have to vote to change the formula.
Additionally, have we or could we look at the way that the 2 factors are determined for the town? So these 2 factors being value of property, wealth of community, what numbers are they using? Because you did bring up a point that, you know, you see Whitman, Abington, Rockland, et cetera, as fairly equal. That's not coming out in the numbers. So wouldn't it be a good thing just to, you know, ask them to take a look at, you know, those actual numbers and what they're basing that off of?
Yeah, again, I think that's an excellent point. Until Tuesday, I never saw those numbers, and again, the superintendent from South Shore VOTEC was kind enough to give them to me. And being on the assessors, I used to know what the EQV was. It's calculated for every town and city in the Commonwealth, but it's a measure of the value of your property within a town. The wealth number, it just says DOE wealth factor or something like that. And again, it's like a number. It could be 33 million for Abington. I have no idea. I haven't frankly looked into that yet. But when I talked to the superintendent and Bob, is they have gone in years past and tweaked those factors. They haven't changed the formula according to them since 1992. But they might say something like, okay, well, maybe instead of taking 15%, your contribution, they change it to 13 for, some other reason. That seemed to be a possibility, as we go forward. But I think we'll get to it in the next slide, but the bigger issue that we have is from a political viewpoint. I talked to State Senator Keenan, and, like you and I'm sure everybody else, it's sort of a big thing, right? And he says every time you go to tweak it, right, some towns make out, or some communities make out, and some don't. And now the communities that don't squawk, and the ones that do, are happy. So they change it again, and it goes back and forth. So it's a challenge. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And again, the reason I wanted to come is, again, what I'm looking for, the selectmen basically gave me support the other night. Maybe we'll just go to page 11.
I
Is-
have that.
What does it say, John?
This is 2008, it's not
Right.
current, because in 2008, as you know, the values are still up there and plummeted after 2008. $2,225,081,800. And I can look for the other communities if you want to.
Now, I'm just more
We look at Whitman.
interested, I'm not sure if we want to belabor it, but what it means and, why it's significant.
1.6 billion.
Okay.
See, we're 2.2. And if you look at some of the, so when you look at that, just from those two communities, Abington, based on this generic formula, it has a greater ability to pay than Whitman. And, if you look,
And I think that was more kind of to my point that we can also take a look at, what numbers they're using. Are they current? Are they up to date? And
well,
different things like
from
that.
From the statutory perspective, they have to be,
Mhm.
but they don't have to be currently posted on the website,
Okay.
on the government website. If we look at Hanover, I think Hanover is a good one to look at too, because that's a bellwether type. Hanover is 2.8 billion, so we're at 2.2. And so you'll see that maybe the formula, when you look at Hanover's assessment, it's a little higher than ours because they have less students. We have more students, but we're paying more because our equalized evaluation is higher. And you look at Whitman, it's 1.6 billion versus 2.2 billion. And they have 109 students, and their assessment is dropped significantly. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So
Yeah.
it needs to
Mhm.
change.
And I think it's probably broader than that, John, because the EQV, if you looked at Brockton, I'm sure is going to be a huge number.
8 billion.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, the number of properties, even though the values aren't there. But again, when you line them up against their 8, or however many member communities, it just can't be on the absolute value of this EQV. And I'm getting a little over my head here. But again, those were the two factors that were basically used.
What's also used is the income of the residents in town.
Yeah,
The income of the residents in town, the value of the property in town. And, that's a factor that we don't have here, and, there's bits and
Right.
pieces that make it up as a whole.
And you have like a community, like say maybe Rockland has more lower income housing than we do, so
Well, let's look at that.
they're,
Maybe they're valued at more than $1, what do you think?
they're,
Their wealth number.
right, their wealth.
Are they using tax assessments?
If they're using an average, and
Right,
there's
if
a,
they're
and there's a
averaging it
lot
out, and
of,
there's a lot of, it's bringing the number down, whereas,
Yeah.
we don't have as much low-income housing.
Rockland is
Yeah.
So the-
2.1 billion.
That's the EQV?
For the property values.
so they're
Yeah,
2
property
point,
values, just property values, not the rest.
I mean,
So-
taking that, adding in everything else, I understand that, but I mean, to me, it also seems more of a Department of Education and challenging that legislatively, et cetera.
I couldn't have said it better, because again, I think for me, the takeaway here is to make our representatives in the Department of Ed aware, and hopefully get other communities, to basically say it doesn't work for us, and here's the reason why. I think that slide, whether you buy into it or not, of, VOTEC compared to Abington Public Schools, and if this continues, if we're paying another $200,000 per year, at some point, something's gonna break, right? Either gonna have to fund the public schools, out of the taxpayers' pocket, or we see if we can get some relief, more of a fair and equitable system, to fund the regional school system. And again, I think we all understand that a regional school is inherently gonna be more costly than a public school, my opinion, because you got an education component and you get the capital component. I mean, it was very interesting to me going down there and going to each shop and the price, the cost for some of the equipment they put in. in each of those. It's very significant, and they do the best they can to try to keep the kids up with the current skills they're gonna need to go out into the job market.
About 3 years ago, Tom, money was set aside, I want to say by the state, for we're going to take another look at the foundation formula. Do you know if that's been done? I know Alan McCarthy spoke a lot about it. It was about 3 years ago.
I'm not sure where they might be with that.
It was a good chunk of money that was
Yeah.
going to be set aside to relook at the foundation formula.
Right, right.
Do you know, do any of us know who would be in charge of that, if that was in fact?
Department of Education.
So we'd have to find that.
There's a link
Assessment.
called Demystifying the Chapter 70 Formula. I don't know if you saw this on the Mass budget. It's a budget and policy center. And they talk about the 1993 legislation, and they talk about the Chapter 70 formula. See, the problem, what happened was that when they did this in 1993, because I remember distinctly, we were sitting back, we, meaning the managers, were sitting back going, well, how are they gonna do it for regional schools? They're doing it on a town-by-town basis, and they're establishing these wealth factors in each. But what about when you have a regional school system, you're involved in more than one system in a contributory fashion or assessment to the state? And it was like taking a square peg and trying to fit it through a round hole. And they said, and they later went back and said, we have to use the same formula, not realizing that that wasn't fair and equitable, because if we kept the per student ratio, it would have been fair for regional schools where you have more than one member community, whether you're wealthy or not wealthy, you're sending that kid to the school system for the same education that the kid from Cohasset and Whitman and other. They're getting the same education. It's not, and they didn't capture that concept. And as a result, we're stuck with this formula, and no one wants to change it. But it should change. It really should.
So basically, in summary, I guess what we would be looking for is to put in place, a letter to the state rep, senators, governor, and Department of Ed, basically, in a nice way, just saying, this is our situation, we'd like to see some relief, how can you help us, I think, basically. And I did talk to Senator Keenan, and again, I think he's receptive to relooking it, because he's got other communities that he supports. Some it would work for, some it wouldn't. But nevertheless, I think it's important to just build the awareness, at people on Beacon Hill and the Department of Ed, to see if they can do something to help us. And before I close, another little tidbit that came up in talking to South Shore VOTEC is, we also have kids placed at Norfolk Aggie. And I guess Norfolk Aggie is sort of its own separate thing. It's not part of the regional school system, is the way I understood the superintendent of VOTEC describe it. But VOTEC administration were most concerned there, because I don't know if you know it or not, but the assessment's gonna change, is that now South Shore VOTEC is gonna get the bill for any kids from the 8-member district communities to send the kids to Norfolk Aggie. Today, Peter Schaefer gets that. Okay? And they don't feel it's fair. It may help Abington, because again, there's the foundation piece that we'll have to spend, but the rest of it, the other cost would be divided equally among all of the 8-member communities. But the point is, it's something to stay tuned to. I mean, what I think he disclosed is, I think last year we had 16, 17 kids going to Norfolk Aggie. This year it's up to 23. And the placement's like $22,000 or something like that.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that the VOTEC would receive the bill for Norfolk Agricultural School? Okay.
We received the bill, but we've talked about changing that in our finance meetings, and I think that most communities, the municipality pays for it, and not the school system, and in this case, the school system is paying. We paid the South Shore VOTEC budget out of our operating budget, and we've talked about transferring that over to the town side.
Yeah, that's not really what I'm talking about.
I know that, but you should know that this school system is one of the few that actually pay that, though it's usually paid by the town. The issue is still the formula, no matter who pays for that.
I think, though, John, today, South Shore VOTEC, correct me if I'm wrong, sends Abington the bill, right, for the assessment. We budget for it, and then we pay it. In the future, South Shore VOTEC will now send us a bill that will be integrated with both the cost to send kids to South Shore VOTEC and Norfolk Aggie, which is a change. And it's was done, I think the senator's name was Brewer. He's somewhere out in the Worcester area, and his constituents were very concerned. In fact, there was an article from Lancaster, 33,000, if you can believe it, to send one child from Lancaster to Norfolk Aggie. I don't know if you know where Lancaster is, but it's in the middle of the state. And his constituents were complaining about it, so it works for somebody like that where they put it in the regional system, and then all those member communities that are in the regional share the cost to send that child to Norfolk Aggie. So they're very concerned about it. They had a meeting at the State House on Wednesday to see if they could get some relief and delay this for a year. For Abington, my opinion is, I know last year and following what was happening, I know Peter came in and I think he was lobbying a little bit to have a separate line item like we do for South Shore VOTEC. They have one for Norfolk Aggie. I'm not sure if that's needed, but I think the point is, I know he's very concerned, is we've gone from very few, and now we have 22 or 23 kids going there, and it costs more than to send your child to UMass Amherst, in college.
But as it is right now, I mean, we're paying whatever the cost is to send our kids to Norfolk Aggie. It's just that that's wrapped into the school budget. So all things being equal, if we took that line item out and made it a line item like on our budget like we do South Shore VOTEC, all things being equal, the school doesn't get that budget anymore because they're not paying it. The town still pays it. So
Yes.
that in and of itself, so it's what, the other thing that you're talking about is that I'm hearing for the 8 schools that are regionalized, South Shore VOTEC would get the bill for all Aggie people for all those 8
For
schools?
Situate, for Cohasset, for Rockland.
And
for
would it be
Whitman.
broken out as to already our piece of it? Like, whoever gets the mail, who cares? Whoever gets the bill, as long
I can't say yes or no, but I would assume that when Norfolk Aggie billed South Shore VOTEC, they would say there was 23 kids from Abington and blah, blah, and this would be the assessment. But I think the key for us potentially is that will be a South Shore VOC, is the way I understood it, assessment. So now you're not only having 151 kids, you're gonna have 170 some odd kids. So that number will be potentially going up.
Yeah.
I don't know how,
Yeah.
really, I think it bears watching on what Peter
No, I think it's good to
and
keep
Tom
that
are
on the
gonna do with
radar.
it.
Doesn't Norfolk Agricultural use the foundation formula?
Yes, they do,
They all have to.
yeah.
So we'll be paying the same amount then? Because South Shore VOTEC uses the foundation formula, Norfolk Agricultural uses the foundation formula. So if Norfolk Agricultural bills South Shore VOTEC using the foundation formula for the Abington students that are going there, and then South Shore VOTEC turns around and bills Abington for the students that are going to South Shore VOTEC and Norfolk Agricultural using the foundation formula, it's all by using the foundation formula, it'll all still be the same bill.
It should be the same amount whether South Shore VOC is paying us with a pass-through to Abington, or Abington's paying it directly. But I just encourage you, when you talk to South Shore VOTEC, find out a little bit more, because they were very concerned with it. And it may work for Abington, or there may be other costs that are rolled into it, because now VOTEC has got to administer it, or, have other fees, that it would be higher potentially than if we were billed directly. And I think the other point was, is that they seem to fall out of kind of the mainstream. This is my understanding, I'm probably getting a little bit beyond, but they're managed by a board of trustees, as opposed to at least VOTEC. There's 8 members from the community, that's their own school committee, that can either, influence the budget. I think it's trustees at Norfolk Aggie that, and again, for me, for those that are sending their kids to Norfolk Aggie, I completely, support that. This is, I think, more of an administration thing that could potentially add some cost to the town. And again, I think they run some good programs and, makes sense for a lot of kids. So I'll conclude by just saying I'd like to maybe come back or maybe send you once a letter is drafted. I know John has, offered his office, I might put together a draft and you can
Yeah, we can put
help
it
me
together, get
clean it
out.
up, and
Yeah,
hopefully
get it
I'd like
out.
to see support. I think I know we have it from the selectmen, with the finance committee and the school committee, who I didn't get into last night, to just, nicely just say, make them aware of the situation and see if there's anything they can do to help us with the formula.
Tom, are you looking for us to make some sort of poll the finance committee, see if that we would be in support of your, basically it's sort of like a feeling of the meeting, general feeling, do we feel that we would want, we as a finance committee, because individually we could support you, but if you want us to make a motion to whether or not to support your next steps, do we need to do that?
I mean,
Do we need to do that
I wouldn't
now?
mind, in sitting on the other side of the table, sometimes I felt a little uncomfortable with, somebody sitting in front of you, you might want to deliberate or talk about it after, but I certainly would like to see that support, be open about it, and again, I think we just need to make people aware. We talk about it every year, we have people at town meeting getting up saying, let's cut the busing, let's, do this, do that, and really, it's not that's that big a driver, it's really the formula. And in fact, I was eye-opening that in each of these programs, I didn't realize when a kid goes there, if you're in the mechanics program, you have to buy your own tools.
Yeah.
In the, what's it, cosmetology?
Buy your own.
$200 to buy, a kit or whatever. So it's not like there's not your users fees down there certainly is.
Uniforms and.
Uniforms,
Yeah.
yeah.
Else on top of it.
So parents are paying out of pocket from, the assessment to each of these districts, so. But yes, I would, and, you folks can, let me know however you want to handle it.
We can formulate a motion now, we can wait, I'm good if anybody is comfortable making it.
I'd make a motion that we support Tom and his endeavor to get that formula changed.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to support Tom in his steps towards looking into this? All right, there you go, we're in support,
I
Tom.
appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, thanks for coming, Tom, that was very informative. Tom, can anyone find this on the website or anything?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll send you the link, and I'll send you the data on the equalized EQ view, the property values, and the income or the wealth of a community, and I will dig a little bit further to find out.
I just sent them
Okay, good,
a link that,
right.
there's some links in here in the presentation, isn't there? Did you have a
I
link
don't
in the
think so.
presentation?
Yeah, but this was something that was a great one that again, the superintendent from Social Vote Tech gave me.
Oh,
Put
okay.
your rate spot on where you need to be,
Yeah.
and he gave me a nice chart that showed how, the metrics that he used to calculate the formula, so.
I
I
was just,
just sent them the basic understanding of
Yeah.
chapter 70, how it's calculated.
That's good.
but if,
Send it to you, Maureen.
that's okay, I'll get it out to everyone, but if, because people are gonna be watching this at some point, do we wanna make this available on the website so people know what we were talking about?
I can do that.
Are you comfortable with that? It's yours.
I am.
Okay,
Yeah, I can
all right.
put it on.
Okay, because it'll end up in the minutes anyway, but if we want to do that. All right. Tom, thank you for all that work. I
John, I'm gonna
appreciate
pass
that.
the seat if you want to come over here, or?
So you don't have to be back to the camera? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll sit over there.
All right. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Do we want to break for a minute? Or we can do some other things while they chat. Why don't we do that? We have, how about minutes of the meeting of September 12th? there was a couple little amendments, I think, that we talked about that I had sent to Deb, but I'd sent them to her wrong email address. It was not a big deal, it was just revising the list, so you guys all are aware of the changes, so I'll entertain a motion. Everybody who's here can vote. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 12th as amended.
I'll make that as amended.
Okay,
I'll second.
second, okay, discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, thanks, Deb. So, done that. And we have Tom. Hey, John,
Oh,
how's your back?
oh, back is fine.
Good,
Yeah, back is
glad to
fine.
hear it.
I sent you some revenue numbers, the first quarter
Yes.
revenue numbers, and I'm gonna not pass out, but I'm gonna hand out to you
Please don't pass
the
out.
revenue numbers that I have. You can take one and pass it along. This is,
They're the same ones we got emailed to us, right?
I don't know if I mailed them to the entire.
You sent them to me, I sent them to everybody
Oh,
else.
okay, great, okay. Yes,
You
they
guys
are.
got my email, that's,
And
yes.
there's one editorial in this that I wanted to share with you, and that is that in September, we're expecting a 2.2 million in state aid, which is our quarterly payment. That 2.2, it's actually 2.19 something, so I rounded up to 2.2, would bring us to approximately 26% of our total revenue, which is 1% higher than where we should be at the quarter. So we're doing well. None of our large commitments have gone out. And based on what we're collecting at this point in time, I would say that we're on target as far as revenue is concerned for, at this point in time. It's only a snapshot, so just to be mindful of that. And I know this is a new report that we do have the capability of providing, and it's broken down by department and how much of a percentage each department is contributing, based on what we have for original budget, adjusted year-to-date budget, revenue, receipts year-to-date, and the budget balance and the percentage, as you can see, and how much we've collected in the current month. So this gives you a pretty good breakdown of what we've collected. What I want to point out in page 2 of 7, you'll see that if you look at the FY13 real estate taxes, you'll see that we have received approximately $6 million. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. Yes, we received approximately 6.5 million, but you will also see that we have collected prior year taxes as well, 109,982, 1702, and 681. That's going to help us
Oh, good.
as we go through the fiscal year. We will always collect a certain amount of back tax revenue, and I just wanted you to be aware of that.
John, is that from like court cases?
I'm sorry?
Is that from like court cases where we've kind of chased it?
Either people have come in and, made some payments, properties have been sold, back taxes have been paid before a lien can be released, and, so that's pretty much where that's coming from. And if you look, you'll see motor vehicle excise. We've collected, some motor vehicle excise in prior years. The large commitment of 1.662 million has not gone out yet at this point. And so that'll go out in February. But you will see that we've collected motor vehicle excise, 97,242 and up. So you'll see that we are collecting prior years as people realize that they can't register their cars until they pay their motor vehicle excise tax. Some of them are coming in to do just that. So that will obviously help us as we reach the the goal we have set of 1.662, 702 million for FY '13.
John, what compelled somebody to pay an excise tax from 1998?
A guilty conscience. No, I $58.70, I have no idea. Or 4609?
2000.
They can't renew their license or insure their car or get a sticker unless that bill is paid.
What's that?
They can't renew their license, get a sticker, get insurance, or register a car until that excise bill is paid.
Yeah, but that goes back to
15
98.
years.
Yeah.
They were
Hmm.
driving without a license.
Updated their systems.
There's no statute of limitation.
Maybe they'd move back to the
You,
state.
you will notice too on this, on the 3 of 7, you'll see that we have estimated meals excise tax of $200,000. We have not received any revenue from that. Once we do, it'll be offset by what we actually receive for the current month as far as receipts are concerned. You'll notice that there's a goose egg there. We haven't received anything yet. We're expecting to receive our first payment potentially, it's collected first and then we receive it probably sometime in September or early October on the meals tax. So, we're doing well.
Yep.
And we expect that that rate will continue as we get to the end of the fiscal year. So I'm not too worried. That was a concern that was expressed some time ago by Selectman Dion. He wanted to see what our revenues were, and he wanted it in August. And I said, well, let's wait until we get our first quarter. And so I think that with our first quarter and the anticipation of 2.1 million coming in, 2.2, that we will be at about 26%. And I'll have a follow-up report for you on that. These reports are pretty good, better than what
Very
we've
good.
gotten in the past. Any questions on that?
It's nice to see this. Is there any place on here, from a revenue perspective, that you're watching closely because you got a weird sense that it's not gonna come in budget, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early. It's too early to tell. I think when we get halfway through the budget, if we're, if we're lagging at the 45% area, we would certainly look at that. And make an adjustment at the special within the annual if we have to. But I'm not too concerned at this point. We're looking at a $40 million, $23,031 in receipts that we need to collect. And we've collected a little, approximately 20, almost 20.5%. Without the state aid, that number comes in. I'm not concerned at this point, but we're gonna, if we do have any areas that we're gonna be looking at closely, we'll make you aware of them, provide you the information as well.
Is, one of the biggest numbers besides taxes is, I think it's, fees, building permits. That's like 160,000. It's, hang on, no,
That's to the
it
building
was just
department.
on, where was I?
On
I
page
mean, if
4.
you're not worried about it, I'm not worried about it. I just know it's a big number to hit, but if, I'm quite, is that where it is, page 4?
Where are you? Okay.
Yeah, bottom of page 4, building inspector, Department 2410,
Yep, 160?
yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm not saying it's anything, it's just, I'm sure it comes in when it comes in, so that's
Well,
just a big
you're
number to
right,
keep an
it's-
eye on.
Yes, well, that number, incidentally, there will be some additional fees coming in from Cape Cod Lumber.
That's what I thought, probably.
Yeah, and so I think that number will be fine.
Okay,
I think it should be around that number,
great,
but we'll, certainly keep an eye on that.
thank you. Anybody have questions or want clarification on it any further? All right, that's good. That's good, thank you.
We sent out, I think a memo was sent out, I hope the committee got it, regarding the timeline that we have set forth. The warrant is open, it'll close. We expect to have our capital plan meeting, the department heads meeting on a week from today, which I think would be the 3rd of October. Finance committee members who are available during the day, it's going to be at 9 o'clock. Certainly, you can attend that meeting if you would like to.
If you guys remember, it was, it had the existing capital plan on it. Mine's color-coded. Do you have the email?
I think it is.
Yeah.
We are currently updating that
Yep.
plan. Some of the stuff that's on that plan has been realized, and others we purchased some things. Some is coming off, new ones are going on, and that plan will be available to everybody on the 3rd.
Will that be the finalized plan on October 3rd? Or is that,
It will-
you're
it will
just
be
starting
the-
to have the meetings at that point?
It'll be the plan of everyone's request. It won't be the plan that we finally agree to fund.
Right.
It'll be the total new capital plan as it exists today. And also, at that point, we hope to have a free cash certification number. We had initially expected that number, when we had talked about it, to be fairly low. We now have a better number. DOR was in today, meeting with, and truing up our accounts. Obviously, we have a snow and ice deficit that we're going to have to meet, and an overlay deficit that we have to meet. And between the two, what will happen, those two items will be taken away from our free cash certification number
Yeah.
and set aside until we raise it on the recap. Then that money will be available and released for the next free cash certification. So it's an amount of money that will more or less carry over to it'll be somewhere around $160,000 to $180,000, maybe more than that, maybe close to $200,000.
Is that the free cash expectation, the 180 or so? Or is that's
that's
the
the-
overlay and
That's the overlay.
snow and ice?
Snow and ice is 119, the overlay is probably another 60 or 70, so it'll be close to 200,000.
Got it.
And yes, that would be our new, that would carry over to our new free cash numbers in next September. So we expect 610, 660, 680, about 670, 680,000 estimated for free cash certification, which hasn't been certified yet. We're expecting it to be certified this week or early next week. Once that certification becomes available, I will send it out to everybody, Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, schools, everyone will have that number. And then we will work a formula that basically sets 60% aside for stabilization, and then we will work with the 40% for capital projects. There was a request by Selectman Franny to also begin to fund the unfunded liability for healthcare. We have a healthcare, unfunded liability healthcare trust account we started when I first came on board. Many communities are not even funding that. We expect to fund that with the 10% of our 40%. And so maybe 25,000, maybe less, somewhere within that range would be put into that trust account. And we would do that every year. We expect that the state will extend that trust fund, very similar to how they've extended the pension. And so as long as we're putting money into the account and we're making an effort in that direction, that it'll help with our bond rating. Obviously, I want to make sure that our bond rating over the next 2 or 3 years is improved, so that if we end up building a school, that the cost that the citizens would have to incur would be significantly less with a higher bond rating, rather than a lower one. So that's where you save millions of dollars, when you're going out for a bond authorization of millions of dollars. So we're hoping that, I think that will be in good shape when we get ready to borrow. So that's all I can tell you about free cash at this point. We're probably going to need to have a series of meetings with the board. I am putting together a proposal for some salary adjustments. And what I'm going to provide you with as I get that information, it's coming in, is salary surveys of comparable positions in other communities in this South Shore area. And what we're proposing to make the adjustment to. So you'll see that we're trying to stay within the median range of salaries within the area, not the high range or the low range, but somewhere in the median. And, you know, we'll take whatever that number is. You know, you'll have the breakdown of and the background information as to why. And then we'll sit and decide how much we can afford to provide in raises if
Can I just
We get to
clarify
that.
that? You're talking about non-union, non-contract employees.
that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify for those.
Yes, no. We're also going to have, and it's on the agenda to talk about, we do have two unions that will be on the fall town meeting. One would be the fire union, and the other is going to be the highway. And there's two, the prior year contracts, the highway's been out of contract for 2 years. The fire, less so. We have clerical that's out of contract. We have, I'd like to settle the clerical, get back to the 35 hours, and to open up Monday night at Town Hall, so that we have Town Hall open on Monday nights. That number, to restore that amount of money, is close to $28,000 to $30,000. Well, I have a more definite number, and that's the large part of what we're going to spend our money on with clerical. We're looking at a 1%. The standard increases are 1.5% for collective bargaining agreements for prior year. For example, we're going to settle we have settled and voted to settle the prior years for highway, park and rec, and sewer at 0 and 1.5. That takes care of the prior year. In the years going forward, we're at 1, 1.5. But as you know, in most contracts, there are other incidental increases, whether it's stipends and whatever. And what we're trying to do is to keep the package around 2.5%, 3% at the most, so that, you know, we're not looking at collective bargaining agreements that are above and beyond the revenue stream that we have coming in. Obviously, you can't spend what you don't have, and so you'll get a look at the finance department, the finance committee, the Board of Selectmen and town meeting will have that information before they vote on any of the collective bargaining agreements. You'll know what it's going to cost. The most expensive contracts that we're going to settle in any town, whether it's Abington or East Hopscotch, are fire and police. And we're looking at a fire department settlement of somewhere around $160,000, of which we're going to use some money from ambulance receipts. In FY12, I think it's FY12 and FY13 are the years that we have settled, at least at this point. Beyond FY12, that number begins to even off, and the increases are incremental at that point, until we get to FY15, where, with the fire contract, we're going to have weekend differential. And that weekend differential is a number that will cost us some money. It's a new item, but they've given up on, well, they've had to give up on the Lexington plan, which increased salaries 5, 5, and 5, providing individuals with the highest 3 years for retirement purposes. PERAC has recently ruled and sent out notification to all municipalities that they will look at that and factor that out of the retirement number, an assessment to cities and towns. We'll still have to pay it, but it's not going to inflate their retirement numbers, and which is a good thing. So we pay for the increase, but it's not going to be calculated towards their retirement. Within the FY13 budget, we have we have provided some increases to staff personnel that we're not going to provide increases to at the fall town meeting. The increases that we're going to provide at the fall town meeting are for those individuals that are outside of the union, and we haven't provided some kind of financial remuneration in the FY13 budget. So those folks are taken care of. There's no double dipping. They're not going to get any additional money, and we'll identify those individuals as well with the amounts that we have worked into their contracts. Not contracts. We have no contracts for anyone, but into their pay scale. And we'll show you what we've done with those as well. So it's going to be less than what we initially anticipated, because through the operating budgets as they exist now, we were able to establish some monies that could go to salaries from the salary line items of the budget for those respective departments that we have worked to come up with some agreement. And the others, obviously, we're going to have to wait to town meeting and for an appropriation because we don't have the money.
You guys have any questions so far on that?
No.
No? Okay. So you've mentioned fire union contracts, highway union contracts, clerical is being worked on. They're working on park and rec, highway and sewer. You mentioned police and fire are the most expensive. Is police, are they in negotiations right now?
We are in negotiations with police. We do not have a formal proposal from them yet. We have been talking back and forth, and everyone has asked for a copy of the contract that the fire has settled for. And so we have provided that information because it is public information. And it looks like the cost of living increases are going to be within the 1.5% to 1% range, which I think is good. At least it's a positive movement in the right direction. The problem with, and the thing with clerical that we should all be very conscious of, is that clerical is the only union that had hours cut back that have never been restored. So we're going to restore those hours, and we're going to work on a pay scale arrangement where clerical employees are going to either receive a cost of living increase or a step increase, but they will not receive a cost of living increase and a step increase in the same fiscal year. And so we've established a grid that allows that to happen, so that they progress to a degree, but they don't get a COLA and a step increase that gets them, higher than what is reasonable and what we can afford. Also, opening late at night has been a bone of contention with the clerical union, and primarily the largest reason why we haven't settled with them. My approach has been, if necessary, to go to fact-finding, and then if we reach an impasse, to implement and open up late on Monday nights. It is a long Monday, but the Friday would be shorter, and I think over time you'll see that we need to, many of the communities around this South Shore area are open one night a week, late, and for us, I think it's incumbent upon us to provide, to realize that we're here for the general public. It'll take a while before the general public will realize that we're open, and have the ability to come in after work and conduct business, pay a bill, ask a question, attend a meeting. A lot of meetings occur on a Monday night and in Town Hall, and the Board of Selectmen meet on Monday night. Last Monday, we had no one in the audience. Hopefully, we can get, some people to bring in banners or picket signs or whatever to at least show they're active.
Is that gonna be all departments, so you could come in
All
and get a
depart-
building permit
Any
on a Monday
department in
night?
Town Hall will be open. That includes our internal customer base, which would be the town accountant's office, the veterans office. All of our offices are going to be open in Town Hall.
I mean, not everybody who works in town hall has to be here but every office will be open.
Oh, everyone has to be here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you're going to get paid for those hours. The clerical staff people are going to get paid for those hours at night. The department heads must be here. There's going to be no ifs, ands, or buts. Unless there's a medical purpose or reason why you can't be here at night, which would have to be certified by a doctor. Otherwise, you're going to be here. That includes department heads. There was some issue about whether or not department heads would be here. And from my perspective, it's a very simple resolution. You will be here. And obviously, the department heads do not want to leave staff people here without some direction. So I think it's going to work out where that's going to be resolved, obviously. So, and that cost to fund that contract at 35 hours versus 32 is about $30,000. And then there would be a percentage increase based on what we're able to agree to in 13. So I think that the way it's going to pan out is that hopefully we have a mediation coming up in October. Obviously, we're not going to be able to settle that prior to town meeting. But we're going to at least look towards two things happening. One is that Town Hall will be open one night a week late, Monday, and that we're going to finally fund the clerical union at 35 hours versus 32. And then there will be a cost of living increase attached to that as well. Those are contracts that are less financially cumbersome. The two obviously are police and fire. And the reason why is because they have Quinn bill money, they have base salary, stipends, all of it is rolled into overtime, as you know, and all of that is, certainly costly. So one trend in the fire department, which I'm very pleased to be able to indicate to you tonight, is that the overtime numbers are starting to trend down because of the number of personnel that are now working. And I think that we're going to have to do the same thing in the police department. I can tell you that in FY14, we're going to have a financial commitment to add additional police personnel to the FY14 budget. We obviously don't have the ability to do it all at once, but we're going to do it on an incremental basis, and we're going to get them back to a shift presence of somewhere between 26 to 29 officers, where they probably need to be.
Not a shift presence,
A total presence.
a total presence.
Yes, but when I'm talking about a shift presence, I'm talking about,
Shifting
That's
from,
down.
Four guys in a cruiser.
right.
we're not going to have 29 guys on one shift, that's for
Right.
sure.
Just wanted to clarify.
But there will be
I didn't want
29.
anyone in
There'll be
town
nobody
thinking
else on
that,
the
right.
shift.
But there won't be any crime because they'll have sniffed it all out.
Well, not during that one shift.
Yeah.
There'll be no
And
crime when there's 28
right.
people on.
Okay.
How about the school contract? Any news? Nothing you can say? School.
On the
We're talking
union?
about the contract, so police,
Yeah.
fire, schools, anything you can share with us?
Nothing at this point, which I think that in discussing it briefly with Superintendent Schaefer, it's obviously a concern of ours. We'd like to get an agreement, but it's an affordability issue from our perspective. We're just not going to negotiate contracts that we can't afford to pay.
Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else from a contracts perspective. Anything else you guys have to bring up?
No?
Um,
We do have a meeting scheduled. I thought you might be bringing that up about the warrant meeting on the 4th.
Yeah, let's jump into that right now. Is the warrant open as we speak right now?
Yes.
The warrant opened on Monday, right?
Yep.
I think it was gonna open Monday, okay,
And it's going to close on the 1st.
which is Monday, okay. What John was mentioning was, the warrant opened this past Monday on the 24th, it's closing this Monday on October 1st. After that happens, what we usually do is have a meeting. It's scheduled for Wednesday, 10/3 at 4 PM. I don't think I can make it. It's usually, I'm gonna try to see what I can do, but is there anybody here on the committee that thinks they could make it?
I could make that.
Barbara says she could make it. It's Wednesday at 4
Here at Town Hall?
here at Town Hall.
Yeah, right here, in this room.
It's usually like, it's the finance team, it's John, it's Jack Pistorino, it's, Sue will be there.
Lauren Goldberg.
Lauren Goldberg, the attorney, will be there. Sean Riley is usually there.
And we go over the format. In other words, is it a
But-
9/10
yeah.
vote? Is it a simple majority? Is it a 2/3? How we're going to write the motion, all
Yeah.
of that. Because the motion really are the Finance Committee's motions, but we want to make sure that they're legal and they're written properly. And so that will be done as well.
And we, the finance committee, will not have had an opportunity to see it yet, because it's.
Oh, you're going to get an electronic copy of,
That day.
as soon as it closes,
Okay.
when we have
Tuesday.
it prepared.
Okay.
Probably,
But we'll not have a chance to have talked about it
No, no,
as a committee yet.
unless
So
you want to meet Thursday.
Whoever goes to that meeting can certainly review it and listen to what's being said and offer, but we have not yet had, we won't have our recommendations, because we will not have had an opportunity to meet and see.
Unless you want to start meeting Thursday on it.
I mean, we could be meeting next Wednesday night. I mean, we usually meet Wednesday, or we could talk about that, but
Yeah.
as things stand right now, the warrant will be available somewhere probably around Tuesday. You guys will be reviewing it on Wednesday, you guys, or me guys.
Board of
or you
Selectmen will be meeting Wednesday night as well.
guys.
And
Okay.
see, they may take articles off
Right,
that are not petitioned articles, or they may put articles on that, they'd like to see. It's their warrant, and they have the ability to do that. So it's not necessarily going to be a final warrant until it's signed,
mhm.
but as things change, we will make sure that you get the latest changes.
And when were the selectmen gonna meet?
That Wednesday night, the
Wednesday.
3rd.
Okay.
So if this meeting is at 4 o'clock, they're meeting after that at like 6:30 or whatever. So, if one or either of you
Yeah, I
could
can
go, I don't mind who goes. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it at 4, so, we can just say either one or both of you
Yeah,
guys
we'll
can,
both go.
or you guys can work it out, as long as one of you is, as long as
And
somebody is.
Sean Riley, moderator, will be here as
Yep.
well.
Yes.
It's usually a pretty informative
meeting.
meeting. Yeah, it's a good meeting.
Usually there's one closer to the actual fall town meeting where we talk about actual verbiage, and will we be having one of those too, sometime before the 29th? The town meeting's set for the 29th, right?
Yes, it's on the 29th. It's a Monday.
Yep, 29th town meeting.
Of October.
October, yes, I'm sorry.
John, will the meeting be on TV?
Not the 4 PM meeting.
Not the 4 PM meeting, no.
It's not, correct me, it's never been an open meeting.
Yeah.
It's a
staff meeting.
It's a staff. meeting.
Really, it's a staff meeting. Really, it's designed to basically talk about the intricacies of each of the articles, the motions that we think are necessary. I don't know if it's something that, we've never, those are usually never on TV. We don't televise those.
It's on the 3rd at 4 o'clock, right?
Just
Yeah,
asking,
it's
'cause I know
never-
I can't make it.
There's one in the morning, too, right?
Is there
We
a
can
morning
always
meeting
have,
that day too?
Chief recorder for you. You can,
What's that?
you can put one of those little things in your ear and listen to it.
That's the meeting, I'm sorry, Jen, you're right, there's a meeting earlier that day, which is the capital plan meeting.
Right.
You're gonna be meeting all day that day.
9 AM,
Yeah, we have a
October
10 o'clock, we have a 9 o'clock staff meeting on the 3rd to go over the capital stuff with the department heads.
You're gonna provide lunch?
Well, it's at 9 in the morning, but if we're out, if
You
we're,
have to come back, you have
Well-
to be back.
we can meet at Patty Joe's.
All right, so that day is really, really busy, so it's, if anyone is going to that 9 o'clock meeting to talk about the capital plan, the staff meeting, then there's the 4 o'clock meeting,
Right.
then there's the Board of Selectmen probably meeting at 6:30 or so. I'm thinking we probably aren't gonna meet that night, because.
Everyone else
I think it's
will
almost like the dust has to clear.
Right.
But as we back up into things, as far as our meetings go, let's say we're not meeting the 3rd, we might want to consider meeting the 4th, but anyway, hold that aside. Town meeting is the 29th, we have to go 10 to 14 days back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 days back is October 19th, so we have to have our warrant recommendations posted by October 18th, which is 10 days back, and back up a day.
We
So-
have to mail the warrant out this time, rather than postcards, because, and that's
Because we
gonna,
didn't get to that.
yeah.
And now, which, the warrant has to go out even before that. Generally speaking, what usually happens because of this time frame thing is that we generally don't get, as of probably the last 3 years, we don't usually get our recommendations printed on the warrant, just by virtue of the fact that it has to be printed before it can be mailed and this. But if we're working with that 2-week period there, which is, again, backing up from town meeting, backing up 10 days to us having to have our recommendations posted by October 18th, means we have to meet on the 17th. We would probably want to meet on the 10th as well. So, to be quite honest, I hate going from the 3rd to the 10th with no meeting, because we lose a week, even though one of those days is a holiday. So if anyone is interested in meeting on Thursday, the 4th, I don't know what my calendar is, I have to look at it, only because that way the warrant will be set,
Well, it may or may not be, I mean,
that Wednesday night, though, the 3rd.
yeah, Wednesday night they're meeting, so
Yeah.
it should be fairly set by that Thursday.
I don't know, I'm thinking maybe we should preliminarily plan to meet on that Thursday, the 4th,
Or Tuesday.
or Tuesday, the 9th.
Why don't you schedule both of them, and then if you can,
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 9th works better for me. I have PTO on.
I think Tuesday might be a
Alright.
better time.
Good enough.
So you met Tuesday and Wednesday the next week, and
Tuesday
then,
and Wednesday, we'll just do Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we still do have the 17th for our final recommendations before we have to post them on the 18th.
Right.
So I'm sorry, what are the dates of the next two meetings?
Okay, the next two meetings are going to be October 9th and 10th,
and 17th.
and then the 17th.
And
just
you may
clear
need
as
to
mud.
sneak another meeting in there too, but you'll have the ability to do that.
Okay, so we'll plan on the 9th, 10th, and the 17th, if people just want to write that down. I'll send you a follow-up anyway. And then in the meantime, even before that, a week before that, somewhere around Tuesday the 2nd, or probably Wednesday the 3rd, we'll have the draft of the warrant anyway. So
It'll be pretty finalized by
by
then.
that meeting, the Wednesday night. Okay. All right, that's that. Okay. Also on the agenda, we just had a list of what we had already talked about in our last meeting, which were the additional things that have to be, that theoretically have to be included. The ambulance enterprise account, the mailing of the warrants and the postcard, our recommendation timeline, and the transfer of the property maintenance to the highway, which,
Well, I did have the opportunity to speak to the town clerk,
okay, good.
and we took some of those out of order that night. And
Can't I remember?
we have in the warrant exactly what has not been done and what needs to be done
Okay,
from the town clerk.
okay, good.
So you may want to have a discussion with Linda, just so you as the chairman are on the same
Yeah.
page, We have those warrant articles that we need to put on to take care of that.
Yeah, okay.
And we had a long discussion right after our meeting.
Okay, good.
And one of the things that you and I were talking about as a committee
Yeah.
was, that was voted on.
Okay, good.
So,
She's the keeper of the records, so far better than this, so,
yeah, far better than both of us,
yeah,
because I don't know.
because we both, okay.
I can't remember yesterday.
All right, well, you know what, I will send her a note and ask her to let me know what was covered.
Yeah. Or you can also get it from Dory. Send it to Dory as well. She can give you, because they're going to be part of the warrant.
Yep.
So you can get that early.
Okay. All right. Do you have any warrant articles you want to share with us that have been brought to your attention as of yet?
Well, the cruisers, the stuff that we had talked about, delaying from the operating budget to, those are going to be on the antenna for the
Fire station?
fire station, the roofing for the fire station, air packs for the fire department. They run out at in December.
We did the roofing though, didn't we? It was the antenna.
We
that
did the metal roofing, but there's a stripping piece
Okay.
that
There's something, okay.
that needs to be addressed as well.
So these would all be part of the capital plan article?
Yes, it's all going to be part of the capital plan.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And we're going to have to make some difficult choices. So, we're going to go through them on the meeting on the 3rd with staff. We'll have better idea as to what our availability of monies are. We're going to be transferring some money within the operating budget for FY 13 to cover a majority of the collective bargaining agreements. We also have an article, as we had talked about at the end of our formation of the FY 13 budget, where we had a shortage in property casualty liability as a result of workers' compensation.
Okay.
The workers' comp claims went up. We're in the risk pool now.
Yes,
So
highway.
those numbers, we actually ended up, we were paying $240,000 for property casualty liability insurance. We went out to bid, and that number came in at $151,000. But we were paying next to nothing for workers' comp, and that shot up because of the two claims. No one would fund us. No one would carry us or write us. And as a result of that, we're in the high-risk pool.
There's nothing you can do about it. It is
Yeah,
what it is.
no. And so that kind of knocked our numbers off, pretty much. So we're going to have to fund that, and those are some priorities.
How long do you go until you're out of that? I mean, is it 8 years of no claims?
3,
3 years.
It's not too bad.
if we're on good behavior for 3 years. We could get paroled in 18 months, but it's 3 years.
That's good.
And there's no getting out early for good behavior.
All right. That actually covers what I had on our agenda. Is there anything else anybody wanted to bring up at this point? We have John? Nope? Yes. Nope, nope. All right.
We're going to be
Anything
into
else?
it in the next couple of weeks, so, it'll be good. We'll get you as much information as we can and get you answers as quickly as you can. We'll be joined by the finance team at some point and by the town accountant. Like I said, DOR was in today. They were very impressed with our books.
Good.
A couple of questions that we were able to answer and get ironed out, but overall, I think whenever you have a new town accountant coming in, DOR wants to come down and meet the town accountant. I felt slighted. I've been here for 2 years and I didn't know who the DOR rep was, and he didn't care to meet me. Don't worry about you. I want to meet the
He wants
person
the
who's gonna be
the numbers, the
doing the
numbers
numbers.
personnel.
Yeah.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much, John.
Okay.
I think we're good to
Thank
go.
you. And, oh, just one final note, I did this on Monday night as a public servant, we're all public servants. I was at a cookout in Mansfield, and you know how we all brush our grill with the wire brush?
Yeah.
Well, my wife was having a chicken leg, and she was picking it off and doing everything right, and something got caught in her esophagus, and she could breathe, but she couldn't swallow, and we go to the hospital, and it had to be surgically removed. They called in a surgical team probably around 10:30 on Saturday night. She was in the hospital for 3 days, and it was a 2-centimeter bristle brush from the grill that was caught in her esophagus and punctured it. And so the moral of the whole story is, do not put any meat on a grill until you wipe it with a cloth to get rid of any broken bristles that may get caught. And what they do is they sear into the meat, and many times you could eat it and not even realize it. Be very careful with children in regards to that. So,
Oh, well, I hope.
Good PSA.
And she's okay now, though.
oh, thank
No.
God, yeah.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It was a horrible weekend, but. And while we went, I usually don't eat at picnics in the town that I manage, because you never know, somebody might be poisoning you. But anyway, it worked out for the best. They were dear friends, and they felt bad about the whole situation, but he threw out the brushes, and he's gonna find another way to clean the grill, so for your loved ones and anyone at home listening, make sure you take a cloth to the grill after you. And I never did it before. Who would think, you know? You don't think that.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to make sure that you guys are keeping your families safe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, that's always a
Sometimes.
possibility, yeah. Well, why would we do something that sensible?
Logical, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Well, thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks a lot. Good information.
I don't,
Okay, the only, I didn't check to see if we had any,
I didn't either.
any correspondence, but before we go down that road, the annual meeting of the the Town Finance Committee, ATFC. Trying to remember what the date is. I know we sent it out. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Tom knows because he's going, so let's see. I think it is the 20th, 10:20, yep, I even have it written down here, 10 to 2. I mean, 9 to 3, the annual town meeting. Tom is gonna go. Is anyone else interested in attending this year's meeting? Nope, you guys, nope. All right. Tom, I think unless someone tells me you could be our representative there.
Sounds good.
All right, and honestly, I think it's really good for you to go. It's your first year, it's
Yeah,
good.
that's what I was thinking.
And you can come back and tell us about all the breakout sessions, and
Mhm.
I'll make, do you have the stuff that I think Deb sent out, or I sent out?
I do, the
Have
kind
all-
of agenda and everything.
The agenda, how to get there. Okay, so what we'll do, when Deb gets here, I'll make sure that we put together the registration, the money, we send it off, and then we'll be meeting 3 times, or twice,
Yeah.
twice before you go. We'll make sure that you have everything that you need.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for going, and I know it's a lot to ask, practically a whole Saturday.
I got nothing else going on, so.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that, and I think, like I said, I think it will definitely be valuable.
Mhm.
It's good stuff. All right, so that concludes our agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up? And let me just check with Barbara to see if there's any communication, correspondence, or liaison reports, anyone? Cindy?
I met with Chief Majensky the other day. We
Yeah.
just kind of touched on the capital stuff. We'll do another thing later for budgeting and that, but he's got the 3 cruises as he's hoping for, or that they're on there. He wants to replace 3, but all the other items that he had on that plan have been taken care of in
Oh,
other
great.
ways. And then I just asked him, I said, I know that there are a list of wants and there are a list of needs. So
Yeah.
when we get into budgeting, I'd like to know kind of the list of needs versus wants. And that, at that point would be personnel.
Personnel is,
Because he had 2 people in academy, one's still in academy, one has left. And he showed me just a quick snapshot of payroll.
And because of some of the issues going on, in 1 week, he spent $4,174 in sick pay. So then when people are out, he also then has overtime to cover, so.
Did he indicate the cruiser replacement, what the replacement cost of 3 would be
$108,000
for all
all
three?
three is what he'd be looking for.
Anything else? Anything else?
Oh, the other things he had on there, just to
Yeah.
go over quick, the computer upgrade.
Yep,
He's using citation revolving account for that.
so he's all set with that?
Yeah, and the phone system has been done. I think
That's
those
right.
were the only things that he really talked about. I think that was the only thing on his list for right now.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Any other liaison reports? Nope, nope. Okay, good. All right. Deb, I'll follow up with you. We need to get, we have to do a registration for one person attending our ATFC meeting.
Oh, okay. And who would that be?
That would be Tom.
Oh, good.
So I know, can you put that together? The request for the check or whatever? Thank you very much. What'd you get in the mail?
I'm not, I think this went into the wrong mailbox, but I couldn't find that mailbox.
Board of
so-
Health? Okay, that's not us, okay. And this is, all right, I'll take a look at that. That's just a payroll change form. Okay. I don't know if I have to do anything, I just keep it. Whatever.
Oh, is that mine?
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
I was gonna say Deb, but, that's fine, cool. All right, good. All right, that's everything on the agenda. We touched on everything. It is about 8:45. Anything anyone wants to bring up before we motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, hold on, I gotta go turn off the computer. Thank you, guys, thank you for your attention.
So you think that's?
Hey, John.
But it was something I was looking for. You know what? Around Christmas time.